Good morning. Just getting set up here. There we go. Hope y'all are doing well. It's been a long week. We got some good stuff for you today. The Undefined Adverbial Participle. Let me get that going for us here. Oops, that's not it. That ain't it, Chief. That ain't it either. There we go. What's going on? Why is my phone acting weird today? Let's reboot this app. We on lecture 17? Is that right? Heck yes, we are. And it won't let me share. Fan-freaking-tastic. Okay. It appears to be down, or my deal's not working. Let's do this a different way. We'll run into the same font issues as we did several episodes ago. But at least we'll have content. So that's good. As you can see, I'm building a computer behind me and just waiting on one final component, and that's the motherboard, which apparently you can't build a computer without. So just waiting. Okay. There we go. Okay, perfect. Studio mode. Content. So instead of Keynote Live, we're going to go with the display. Okay. And then I need my browser. Yeah. Cool. Perfect. Okay. We got the browser. We got the keynote. I wonder what happens when I press play. Perfect. Not perfect? Why is it taking so long to start a slideshow? I wonder if the service is down. That must be why. Oh, hey! We're ready to rock. Cool. Well then, let's get crack-a-lackin'. So this is the 17th lecture. After this, we've only got 8 more, I think is what it is. Something like that. Maybe 10. And before you know it, you're going to be translating all of 1 John. So that's the reward of all the effort, all the work, all the toil that you put in, all the focus, all the energy. It's all going to go into 1 John. So that should be exciting and rewarding. So we're going to cover some more participles today. We're dealing with undefined adverbial participles. What is it? Well, it's just like the continuous adverbial participle that we covered last week. The only difference is it's based on the aorist tense stem. Now, sometimes the aorist tense stem is the same as the present tense stem. Sometimes, when we're dealing with liquid aorists, second aorist, first aorist, right, there's a difference. So, sometimes you're going to see a completely different tense stem. But there's still no time significance. When we're dealing with indicative verbs, we know when it occurred. Was it past, present, or future, or perfect? Okay? But with a participle, we have no idea. We only know if the action was continuous or undefined. Okay? That's all we know. So how do you form the undefined adverbial participle? Well, if you're dealing with a first aorist participle, you take the unaugmented first aorist tense stem. So there's no epsilon or eta at the beginning. Okay, but you have the first aorist tense stem. Then you have the tense formative. It's either going to be sigma alpha or it's going to be theta eta. Theta epsilon, rather. Okay, it's sigma alpha for the active and middle. It's theta epsilon for the passive. Okay, those should look familiar. They're the same as what you have in the indicative. The only difference is the passive is not theta eta, it's theta epsilon. Okay, but then you have your participle morpheme. So everything we learned last week for the participle morpheme applies here. And then you have your case endings for the nouns. Okay, so that's how you form it. Remember, the aorist tense stem with the same aorist tense formatives, only theta eta has changed to theta epsilon. It's the only difference. Remember that the middle follows suit as with the present tense stem. So it's not middle passive in this case. It's middle with active. So, knowing that information, if you see sigma alpha by itself, it's aorist active, okay? Which means undefined adverbial participle. If you see sigma alpha plus men, remember men in the middle? Then it's aorist middle, undefined adverbial participle. If you see theta epsilon, you know by default it's aorist passive, meaning it is undefined adverbial participle, but it's passive. So let's see it in action here. This is a first aorist active participle. You have, this is Leo, right? I destroy. So in the masculine, it follows the third masculine declension. Okay? Lisas, lisantos, lisanti, lisanta, lisantes, lisanton, lisasin, lisantas. Note that the nominative singular masculine is formed where you have li as the present tense stem, but it's actually in this case the aorist tense stem. Remember, I told you sometimes the aorist and the present use the same tense stem. Okay. Then he uses the sigma alpha tense formative. It uses the nitav participle morpheme, and then it uses the case ending, sigma. Well, the tav drops out, the ni drops out, and you're left with nothing but the sigma alpha, and then the case ending. So that's what's going on in the nominative singular masculine. However, it's retained in everything else except for the dative plural, because typically whatever happens in the nominative singular happens also in the dative plural for the masculine and neuter. So you can see lisas, lisantos, lisanti, lisanta, lisantes, lisanton, lisasin, lisantas, right? It's the same all the way through with the nitav, with exception of nominative singular and dative plural, okay? And the same thing is true in the neuter side. So nominative singular neuter, you have li, you have sa, you have nitav. There's no ending in the neuter nominative singular, right? So then what happens is the tav just drops off, but it retains the ni. Okay, lisan. And then the same thing applies in the accusative singular, okay? So there you have it. That is the third masculine, and that covers also the third neuter. What about the first feminine? You have li, you have sa, you have sa again. So lisasa, lisasis, lisasi, lisasan. We have the alpha eta shift in the genitive and dative singular. We have lisasan, lisase, lisason, lisases, lisasas. Okay? So that's the first feminine singular. Here's the first aorist middle. Here's that lovely, weird format issue that happens when I share it from the browser. Men in the middle. If you see men in the middle, it's not at the end, you know it's a participle because that's the middle participle morpheme. So you have li, you have sa, you have men, you have case endings. That's the third masculine. Lisa menos, lisa menu, lisa meno, lisa menon, lisa meni, lisa menon, lisa menis, lisa menus. Okay? You could translate these reflexively because it's middle. It is undefined, so after destroying himself or something like that, depending on what noun it's modifying or attached to or how it's functioning adverbially in the sentence. You got the first feminine. Lisa meni, Lisa menis, Lisa meni, Lisa menin, Lisa mene, Lisa menon, Lisa menes, Lisa menas. And again, li, sa, men, case ending. The neuter follows the same pattern as the third masculine. The only difference is the accusative and the nominative, slightly different, right? In this case, it's just the nominative singular that's different. You know what? These aren't... I don't know why I put third masculine. That's wrong. This is second masculine, second neuter. Nice error there. My bad. So here's a passive participle. First aorist. You have li plus theta epsilon plus your nitav plus your endings. Okay. The nominative singular is a little different. Okay, it's third declension, so the nitav ends up dropping out. Okay. To compensate, you get a iota instead. So li thes. Okay. And the same is true in the dative plural. Nitav drops out, compensates with the iota, and you get li thesen. Okay. But otherwise, it's got the nitav all the way through. Lithes, lithentos, lithenti, lithenta, lithentes, lithenton, lithesin, lithentas. It's passive. So if it's modifying a verb and what have you, after being destroyed. something like that. But it's adverbial in this sense. Now, it can modify as an adjective. Keep that in mind, too. I think we'll cover that a little bit later today. So that's the third masculine. It follows pretty much the same pattern in the neuter, with the exception of the masculine and not the masculine, the nominative and accusative. Lethen instead of lethis. Lethen instead of lethenta. Okay? But otherwise, it's the same. But the feminine's different. Lethisa, lethesis, lethisi, lethison, lethise, lethison, lethises, lethisas. So you still have the theta epsilon tense participle morpheme. Oh, no. Tense formative. And gosh, you know what? I can't remember why. Hold the phone. Time out. I can't remember why there's the sigma alpha there. Oh my! I actually need to look that up. Hold on. And this is why we have books. So when we forget things, we can look them up. All right. And yes, it's embarrassing that I have to do this, but that's okay. I don't mind. In the end, it doesn't even matter. As you can tell, I'm a singer. No, I'm not. Okay. Oh, yeah. It's because the participle morpheme is usa in the feminine. That's why I was remembering it. So usa, rather than nitav, is the feminine active participle morpheme. And it actually uses it in the aorist passive because it has the theta epsilon. Just making sure I didn't forget anything on that, but I believe that's correct. Okay. So the first aorist active participle morpheme is sasa. So what I said was true for the continuous, but not the undefined. So there's another mistake that I made. So you have the tense formative sigma alpha, then the participle morpheme. The active participle morpheme is nitav. In the feminine, the nitav has been replaced by sigma alpha. You have sa. Because the tense formative is sigma alpha for the undefined participle. So sasa, sasis, sasi, sasan. That's how it works out because of the way the alpha eta shift occurs. Eta eats up the alpha, and then you add your endings to it. And then that carries over into this with the passive. So you got theta epsilon, and then it compensates with the iota, and then the sigma alpha. Then you have, so theta is your complete tense-formative plus participle morpheme, and then you've got your case endings. So lethisa, lethesis, lethisi, letheson, lethise, letheson, letheses, lethesas. Is there anything else worth mentioning here? Nope. Leave this open in case I need to reference it for the next phase, but that is the first aorist passive participle. So now we're going to cover the second aorist participle. Again, it's unaugmented using the second aorist tense stem. That's what you start with. So this is where you're going to see the verbs with unique aorist forms. You're going to see that just without the augment. The tense formative is simply eta, or in some cases a connecting vowel instead, plus the participle morpheme, plus the case endings. Remember, second aorists don't use a tense formative, except that the passive does. It uses eta as a tense formative. Okay. It doesn't need a tense formative because you could tell it's aorist because it's a different tense stem than what you're used to seeing in the present. Second aorist participles also don't use a tense formative, but like the passive, it does shorten the eta to an epsilon in place of a connecting vowel. So if you see a second aorist tense stem by itself, it's aorist active. This is in the context of an adverbial participle. If you see a second aorist tense stem plus men in the middle, right? It's an aorist middle. If you see a second aorist tense stem plus epsilon, it's aorist passive. Okay? So here's an example. Usually balo has 2 lambdas, but here it only has 1. That tells us this is second aorist, and we're dealing with a participle. Okay? So you've got bal, the aorist tense stem, plus omicron connecting vowel, plus nitav participle morpheme. The tav drops off. That leaves us with balon. The omicron lengthens to compensate, becomes omega, and there we have it, balon. Okay? So balon, balontos, balonti, balonta, balontes, balonton, balusin, balontas. Okay? And then the same is true over there in the neuter. These are third declension because of the ni tav. Okay? The feminine, though, this is active, so it's using usa. So balusa, balusis, balusi, balusan, baluse, baluson, baluses, balusas. Okay? The only way we know it's aorist, undefined, is there's only 1 lambda. Okay? Excuse me. So this would be something like after throwing. Men in the middle, we can tell this is easily a middle participle, right? But this is genome. Genome. And here it is gen. Gen. So it looks weird. Second aorist. So genomenos, genomenu, genomeno, genomenon, genomeni, genomenon, genomenis, genomenu. Wait, that's not right. That should be genomenus. I believe it's there. I didn't make the table big enough. Let's see if I can fix that. I don't want to make more cells. I want to make... No, I don't want to make more cells. I want to make... It's easier on the iPhone. That's funny. Yeah, there it is. Get a menus. Excuse me. There we go. Now we got to wait for the slideshow to start. Takes a couple minutes. There we go. Geno menus. After becoming, something like that. So that's the masculine. And it is not third declension. This is second declension. So another mistake. I've made plenty of mistakes this round. I'm sorry. But this is second declension. Same with the neuter, second declension. Feminine is still first declension. That doesn't change. You can see in the first declension, same structure, but the case ending is different. That's how you know it's feminine. The neuter is practically the same as the masculine with a few variation. Context is key. Here's an aorist passive participle from grapho, right? It is written. It's passive in that sense. So you see the stem, graph, and then you see epsilon. And that's how you know this is passive. Now, this one's a little unique because graph is still the present tense stem. But for whatever reason, writing is, I guess, passive when you're talking about scripture. It is written. It was written. So, just be aware. It's usually in the passive. The only way you know it's passive is the presence of that epsilon. That's it. So you have graph plus the epsilon, the nitav plus the sigma. Nitav drops out. Iota is added to lengthen and compensate. And then you have your ending, graphis. Same is true in the dative plural, where the nitav drops out. And then you get a iota to compensate, and you're left with graphisen. Everything else has the nitav. Graphentos, graphenti, graphenta, graphentes, graphenton, graphentas. Okay? Same rules apply in the neuter, so that doesn't change. The feminine uses isa as the not just the tense formative, but participle morpheme. So graphisa, graphisis, graphisi, graphison, graphise, graphison, graphise, and graphisas. Excuse me. I'm getting over a head cold. Like I said, long week. And so that's the feminine. And probably translate it after being written. Something like that. Now remember, participles have relative time. They don't have time built in. They derive their time based on the context of the main verb. Okay? Continuous participles we learned last week. They indicate an action occurring at the same time as the main verb. While. So use the helping word while. Undefined participles indicate an action occurring before the time of the main verb. That's a generalized rule, though. Context is key. Rely on the context to help you translate. But generally speaking, you'll use the helping word after. So you heard me saying, after being written. Okay? So after would be how you might translate the aorist tense stem portion of the participle. It's relative to the main verb. Relative to the main verb. Remember that. So here's a time chart. Make sure you familiarize yourself with this, bookmark it, make a poster out of it, do something so that you have it there with you. So if the main verb is future, you'll still use while with the continuous participle. And then you use the future continuous, while she will be eating. If the main verb is present, you'll still use while with the past continuous, while she is eating. Hold on. I think I've got a typo there. Yeah, that should be present. Present continuous is eating. While she is eating. Present continuous. Glad I caught that. The imperfect will use while plus past continuous. While she was eating. Aorist will do the same. Wait, is that right? Yeah. Aorist will do the same. While she was eating. And perfect will have the perfect continuous. So while she has been eating. Okay? Undefined participles will use after instead. And note that the future uses the present. So after eating for the future. That is correct. Little weird. But that's how it works. I'm double checking. I didn't make a mistake. No, I didn't. So the present with an undefined participle would be after and simple past. After eating. Imperfect would be past perfect. So after she had eaten. The aorist would be the same. After she had eaten. And perfect would be past perfect after she had eaten. Okay, so that's how you use relative time. The main verb informs how you translate the participle, whether it's continuous or undefined. We'll return to something like this later. Now, do bear in mind there are 12 future participles. You need to memorize them. The active uses the sigma tense formative just like future indicative verbs. So, remember, we saw liso. The sigma tense formative tells you it's future, right? The participles use that too if it's active. If it's middle, it still uses men in the middle. That doesn't change. If it's passive, it will change the sigma tense formative to thes, just like in the future indicative. So don't worry about this form as they are easy to identify and the context will help. Okay, so I digress. You don't need to memorize them. And that's because you see the same thing, right? You see the sigma tense formative, you see the thes tense formative, or you see men in the middle plus a sigma. You can identify it. You know it's a participle because it ends in a case ending rather than a personal ending. Plus, you see the tense formative. So you don't need to memorize them. I digress. You don't. Now let's talk about adjectival participles. Everything until now has been adverbial, with the assumption that the participle is attaching to the main verb. But you can have participles that attach to nouns, and therefore they're adjectival. Remember, participles can modify nouns, not just verbs. And as a result, when they modify nouns, they function just like an adjective. When they modify a verb, they function just like an adverb. So what that means is, if you see it relative to a noun, follow the adjective flowchart that I gave you in lecture 4. You won't find that in mounts. I created that. So check that out. It'll help you. Remember, it's attributive, meaning the noun and the adjective agree in case, number, and gender, and the adjective, in this case the participle, is preceded by the article, or it does not require to be. Okay? The adjectival participle is substantive when there's no head noun, meaning it stands alone and it's not modifying a verb. And last, it's predicate, meaning it agrees in case, number, and gender, but not preceded by the article. And when this happens, it requires to be. So you are good. You might have a verb about being righteous, to be righteous there. But it's a participle. And it's agreeing in case, number, and gender, but modifying se, you, or si, rather, si, you. And that would be predicate. So there's no difference between adverbial participles and adjectival participles in how you form them. They're identical. All that changes is it modifying a noun or is it modifying a verb? If it modifies a verb, now you're dealing with adverbial. If it's modifying a noun, now you're dealing with adjectival. That's the only difference. So everything you've learned up until now applies to adjectival. The only thing you need to be aware of is its function. Now, how do you translate substantival participles? These are participles that don't modify any other noun. They don't modify a verb. They stand alone. They stand apart. O legon to ochlo estin, o didaskalos mu. The one who speaks to the people is my teacher. Now, in this case, o legon is substantive. It's adjectival. It's not adverbial. Okay? It is the subject. Right? It's nominative singular. It is the subject. Okay? The one who speaks. That's how you translate it. So you end up supplying the one who. And then you take the verbal idea of the participle and supply that. So the one who speaks. So here's a list of helping words. If it's masculine, you might use one, he, they, those, who, whom, depending on the case. Feminine might use one, she, they, those, who, or whom. And neuter might use one, that, which, thing, or things. And most of the time, you'll probably use the, assuming there's a definite article present. Okay? So substantival participles, they're pretty cool, actually. I like them. You have to supply a few extra words to make sense of it. So, in summary, adverbial and adjectival participles use the same forms. Nothing changes there. You still use the same participle morphemes, tense formatives, all that jazz. The presence of the article is important because then the participle must be adjectival. It can't be adverbial if it has an article attached to it. Okay? But if there is no article, it could be adjectival, it could be adverbial. Context is key. So the mighty context is going to be crucial for helping you understanding the participle. And again, adjectival participles use relative time. Follow the same chart as before. We're going to look at it in a moment. For relative time when translating either adverbial or adjectival participles, especially for attributive participles. Adverbial in the chart incorporates all aspects. Adjectival incorporates the blue text only. Okay? Here's an attributive example real quick. O anthropos o legon, to ochlo estin o didaskalos mu. Here it's the man who is speaking to the crowd is my teacher. The main verb is present tense, is, estin. The participle is continuous, o legon. So we're going to use a present continuous when attaching it to o anthropos, is speaking. The man who is speaking to the crowd is my teacher. Okay? So to be does not need to be supplied because it's already there, estin. It's the main verb. That's how we know this isn't predicate. Okay? We also know it's not predicate because it has a definite article. Now look at this one. O anthropos o legon to ochli in o didaskalos mu. Now we're dealing with an imperfect main verb with a participle that is continuous. So that's going to be past continuous, was speaking. The man who was speaking to the crowd was my teacher. Okay? So here's the relative time chart. Remember, the blue is what the adjectival follows. The blue text. Okay? The adverbial follows all aspects. Black and blue. Okay? So to cover the adjectival, when you're dealing with a future main verb and a continuous participle, that's adjectival. It's going to be future continuous. Will be eating. If it's an undefined participle, then plus the future main verb, it'll be translated as a present. Eating. Okay? As you can see, the undefined participle is fairly simple. Eating in the present, eating in the past, had eaten in the past perfect, had eaten past perfect, had eaten past perfect, okay? But in the continuous, with the future, it's will be eating, present is eating, imperfect was eating, aorist was eating, perfect has been eating, okay? This is a good chart to print out. Take a screenshot, make your own, do something. Do it in Excel, do it in Word, do it in Pages, numbers, whatever you want to do. Do it in Google, I don't know. Do it somehow. It's a good one to have and reference. If you don't print it out, just be aware that this is a thing and bookmark it so you've got quick and easy access to it. So if you haven't already, I'd appreciate the support. Click subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. You'll get little brackets around the bell. And also, like it if you liked it. If you don't like it, click dislike. Give me your feedback. Share it. That's another way of supporting. I'd appreciate that too. Another way to support, if you would like, if you're thinking about it, you can consider donating. If you follow the link below, it's streamlabs.com/phonavone1. And you can donate there if you like. You don't have to. It's not required. This is free content, and I do it for a reason. I want to make this accessible to people. Next week will be Lecture 18. And actually, I think we're done with participles. Yeah, we just covered 29. This will be chapter 30. No, perfect participles. We're covering perfect participles. So we're almost done with participles, though, and then we'll get into the other fun stuff. Subjunctive, mood, the infinitive, etc. So there's some exciting stuff coming. And then we'll start translating 1 John. It's exciting. Thanks for joining. Have a good week. Stick around for some Greek word of the day, and we'll see you later. Bye-bye.